Okay, so every January you've got the world's most powerful people all heading to this snowy town in Switzerland, right? Davos. But this year was different. The whole meeting happened against this backdrop of, well, intense global tension, crazy fast tech changes, and just this deep, deep sense of uncertainty. So the big question is, what really goes down when all these leaders meet under a cloud like that? Let's get into it.
And you know that feeling? It wasn't just some vibe in the air. Nope. This quote right here comes directly from the World Economic Forum's own report, which dropped right before the event. And this one sentence, man, it just set the tone for everything. It basically framed the entire gathering, not with hope or optimism, but with this really heavy, unavoidable sense of caution.
So, to try and fight back against that pretty grim mood, the official theme they went with was a spirit of dialogue. The idea, was to get people talking, to try and find some common ground in a world that honestly feels like it's just pulling apart at the seams.
And hey, the world definitely showed up. We're talking nearly 3,000 people from over 130 countries, all packed into the Swiss Alps. That is a massive turnout. It's actually one of the biggest gatherings they've ever had. And get this, the political turnout was record-breaking. Almost 65 heads of state and government were there. That's a huge deal. It's a really clear sign that even with all the division, leaders felt this urgent need to just talk.
So the premise, was pretty hopeful. The whole idea was to create this kind of trusted, neutral zone where leaders could have really open conversations about, well, everything, from war to AI. And the hope was that all that talk would turn into real, actual action.
Okay, but beneath that hopeful theme of dialogue, the forum's own data was painting a much, much darker picture. One that wasn't about cooperation at all. It was all about fierce competition.
And this brings us to the really crucial question, right? If everyone's there to talk, what are the things that are actually keeping them up at night? Well, that same global risks report gives us the answer. And honestly, it's kind of shocking.
All right, check out this table. This is fascinating. It shows this huge split between what leaders are worried about right now versus what they're worried about down the road. So, in the short term, the next 2 years, that column on the left, the fears are all stuff we created. We're talking geoeconomic conflict, misinformation, societal polarization, even armed conflict. These are the immediate fires they're trying to put out. But then, you look 10 years out, and the whole list changes. It's completely dominated by environmental disasters. It's such a stark picture, isn't it? It's like we're all busy fighting these political fires, while this much bigger existential climate crisis is just looming over everything.
So what's the big takeaway from all this? The bottom line is that this report is sending a massive signal. It's saying we're leaving an era of cooperation behind and we're entering what the forum is calling an age of competition. It's a time where trust is just breaking down, and even things like economic policy are being used as weapons.
And you know where this tension, this clash between cooperation and competition is most obvious? In the world of artificial intelligence. Seriously, AI was one of the absolute hottest topics at Davos. And people talked about AI in two totally opposite ways. On the one hand, it's this amazing, revolutionary tool for growth and innovation. But on the other hand, it's seen as a primary driver of brand new, completely unpredictable global risks. A real double-edged sword.
This slide just perfectly illustrates the AI arms race in cybersecurity. Think about it. For every single way AI is being used to beef up our defenses, it's also being used by attackers to create smarter, more sophisticated attacks. It's a constant feedback loop. Every defensive move just fuels a new offensive one. It's making our digital world way more powerful, yeah, but also way, way more dangerous.
And don't think for a second that leaders are sleeping on this. An incredible 94%, that's almost everyone, believe AI is going to be the single biggest driver of change in cybersecurity. That's not just a majority, folks. That's practically a universal consensus. Everyone agrees on how disruptive this is going to be.
But this sense of a world divided, it goes way beyond just technology. The conversations at Davos really pulled back the curtain on these deep economic and political fractures that are literally reshaping our world as we speak.
So take this quote from China's Vice Premier He Lifeng. He uses this really powerful metaphor. He's basically saying globalization is like an unstoppable ocean. And any attempt to go back to being isolated, protectionist countries, well, that's like trying to scoop up the ocean and put it back into little lakes and creeks. It's just not possible. It goes against the flow of history. But right as that call for global connection is ringing out, a report from the charity Oxfam drops this absolute bombshell of a number: $18.3 trillion. That is the record-high total wealth of the world's billionaires. Just let that sink in. And well, this number created a massive disconnect at the whole event. You've got this weird situation where on one side, you have leaders calling for global unity. But on the other side, you've got critics like Oxfam basically shouting from the rooftops that while everyone's talking, billionaire wealth has just exploded since 2020. Their argument is that this crazy concentration of wealth is being used to influence politics and the media, which in turn fuels the exact same social polarization that the leaders themselves called a top global risk. See the problem? So, when you put all of this together, the competition, the AI arms race, this massive gaping inequality, what's the final takeaway? Well, it leads to a pretty sobering conclusion.
And here it is. The ultimate consensus seems to be that this constant state of crisis, of uncertainty, it isn't just a phase we're going through. It is the new normal. Instability is no longer the exception. It's the baseline. It's the new operating system for governments and businesses around the world. This chart really visualizes that pessimism. So look at the bar on the left. That's the outlook for the next 2 years. Half of the experts surveyed foresee a turbulent or stormy world. Okay, pretty grim. But now look to the right at the 10-year outlook. That number actually goes up to 57%. And that's the really scary part. The feeling isn't just things are bad now. It's that they're probably going to get even worse. Which brings us right back to the central dilemma of Davos 2026. The entire meeting was built on this idea of a spirit of dialogue. But in a world that's so clearly defined by competition, by staggering inequality, and where instability is just the new baseline, you have to ask the question, is dialogue really enough anymore? Is just talking enough to bridge these massive divides? Or has the time for talking run out, leaving us with only the need for some kind of drastic, decisive action?